In this week's Torah portion, we learn about the Sota ritual, in which a woman is accused by her husband of being alone with another man long enough to have committed adultery with him. She's forced to go through a humiliating ordeal, which seems specifically designed to publicly shame her even before her guilt is determined, based solely on the jealous accusation of her husband. No witnesses needed. The Torah says nothing of a woman's ability to accuse a wayward husband, nor any ramifications for the husband for making false accusations. By prescribing such an elaborate ritual, the Torah seems to be endorsing this kind of misogyny. Or does it? Immediately following the story of the Sota, we have a seemingly unrelated section on the laws of the Nazir, someone who takes an oath to abstain from drinking wine, cutting their hair, or being in the presence of a dead body for a certain time. Does the fact that these two stories follow one another maybe it has something to teach us? The Talmud answers that the Nazir watched the ordeal of the Sota and thus decided to become a Nazir. The person assumed that this Sota woman must have gotten all dolled up and boozed up, and that's what got her in trouble. So they decide to swear off wine and haircuts to avoid the same fate. I'm not sure that Talmudic explanation really resonates with me. It feels a little bit like victim shaming. I'd like to offer a different take. Maybe the Talmud is right that the Nazir took the vow of abstention in response to the Sota, but for a different reason. We aren't really told anything about the Nazir's motivations for taking these vows, but it uses the word yafli. And one way to translate the word yafli is to separate. And actually, the very word Nazir comes from the Hebrew word nazar, which also means to separate. What was the Nazir separating from? Perhaps the Nazir was not disgusted by the behavior of the Sota, but rather by the reaction of the community. Perhaps the Nazir is saying, I will not be part of this ritualized communal humiliation. I'm separating from this mob mentality. I'm taking these vows as an act of protest against misogyny. So, if this is an act of a protest against injustice, why these three abstentions: alcohol, haircuts, and dead bodies? I'd like to offer that these three behaviors might provide some insight into communal indifference. What causes people to look the other way when someone's being treated unfairly? Alcohol is a method of denial. I'm going to numb myself, distract myself, pretend like it's not happening. Cutting your hair is a way to rationalize a bad situation. Let's just trim away the split ends to make it look good without making any real changes. Let's put some lipstick on this pig. Encountering a dead body, coming up against our mortality, is a means to disempower through fear. Who am I to go up against the masses? I'm just one person. I might get hurt, or worse, there might be consequences. And so, three things that might lead us to communal indifference: denial, rationalization, disempowerment. Burt was my mashpia, my spiritual director for 4 years, including my time in rabbinical school and my first few years as the spiritual leader of Chokhmat Halev. We met each month, and I learned so many things from him. But one of the most salient and recurring teachings that I learned from him is that we cannot look away from injustice. He embodied this interpretation of the Nazir, who is willing to buck the trend, stand up to conventional wisdom when he saw that people were being hurt, particularly the vulnerable and the marginalized. He saw that as a sacred imperative, a core part of what it means to be a Jew. So as we mark Reb Burt's Yartzeit today, let us honor his memory by committing to live out his values. We are sadly surrounded by injustice all around us, and we too are guilty of indifference. How many of us, when we see the images of starving children in Gaza, whole families buried in rubble, when we see images of bereft hostage families in Israel, How many of us keep scrolling on social media to numb away the discomfort? How many of us are so daunted by the magnitude of climate change to take action? Who am I as one person to make a difference? How many of us dismiss racial injustice or misogyny as a systemic problem, absolving us of personal responsibility? And as we enter Pride Month this month, who amongst us looks at the rights of queers and trans people being stripped away across the country and say, well, I'm glad I live in California? Those are the attitudes that the Nazir is taking a stand against, committing to abstaining from. Let us be inspired by Reb Burt to dispense with our excuses and to fight for justice. As his beloved Baal Shem Tov taught, quote, if a man has beheld evil, he may know that it was shown to him in order that he learn his own guilt and repent, for what is shown to him is also within him. When we witness evil, it isn't merely out there, it's actually within us. Let that truth stir our hearts and call our souls to accountability. We are not powerless bystanders. We are those who must speak truth to power, who must refuse numbness, who must take a stand. As we honor Reb Burt today, may our eyes remain open, our voices unafraid, and our hearts commit to justice, because what we witness in others asks us to first examine ourselves.